There's a question, what can be said about colonies of Earth inhabitants living underground, nearer to the core of the Earth? And this is one of these questions that it's easy enough to answer when you have a certain understanding. But with the understanding most of us were brought up with, it's very difficult to answer the question, because people just look at these theories that are out there, some of them conspiracy theories, some of them alternative, some even channeled or spiritual teachings that talk about this. There are cities underground, there are beings underground, there are even alien beings, greys, who live underground. And I remember many years ago I came across this book that was an old book written about in the 1800s called The Hollow Earth. And the idea was that at the North and South Pole there was an opening. So if you looked at cut through the Earth, there were these openings, and then inside there was this room. So the crust of the Earth was just a thin shell, and there was a miniature sun inside the center of the Earth that was giving life, and there were all kinds of life forms there. There was a whole world in there. You have Jules Verne's book Journey to the Center of the Earth, for example. But this was made more scientific. But what I realized about this book was two things. First of all, it could only have been written before the invention of the airplane, because when people started flying over the North and South Pole, they could see there was no hole. And then the other thing was that you look at the diameter of the Earth, and you can see that for this inside sphere, it would be very close to the sun, and it would just be extremely hot in there. You look at how far we are from our sun, and you can say, okay, well, the sun in the center of the Earth is much smaller, but still, everything would be burned up if there was a sun in there that functioned the way our sun functions, with nuclear fission or fusion. So what I'm saying is, when you look at this based on a rational scientific explanation, these kind of ideas make no sense whatsoever. But they actually don't make sense from a spiritual perspective either, when you understand what the Ascended Masters teach. And what they teach is, as I've said before, there are 4 levels of the material world. The purely physical, and the purely physical is made up of vibrations. It's all made up of energy, but they are vibrations of a certain level, certain frequency spectrum. Then above that in vibration, higher vibrations, there's the emotional, then the mental, and the identity. So, what does this actually mean? It means that it's like you could say that the emotional realm is a parallel universe to the physical. And there are conscious beings in the emotional realm. So there is a physical planet, but interpenetrating the physical planet and surrounding the physical planet is these higher vibrational energies of the emotional realm. And there are beings in this emotional realm that have an existence. And if you can switch your perception, as some people who are clairvoyant, have their third eye open, can do, you can see these beings. But what you are seeing is not physical beings in the physical spectrum of energy. You are experiencing beings in a higher spectrum of energy. So I'm not saying that there aren't beings who live underground closer to the center of the Earth, but they are not in the physical vibrational spectrum. It's the same thing. You go back in time and you can see these fairy tales or folklore where they talk about gnomes, sylphs, elves, all of these beings. And these beings do exist, but not in the physical. They're in a higher vibrational spectrum. And so what can happen to people is that you can have a situation where your consciousness shifts. So instead of your consciousness being tuned to the physical realm, you're now tuned to, for example, the emotional or the mental. But if you don't realize this, you are thinking, you are experiencing these physical beings. It's the same with the people who claim to have been abducted by UFOs. And now I know I'm going to upset a lot of people if they see this, because I met spiritual people who have such a strong belief in UFOs. But the reality is that this is also where people shift their consciousness. And they're experiencing something in a different vibrational realm, but they can't tell that it isn't physical. And I know you can come up with all kinds of, they have needle marks when they come back. But there are many examples of where the mind can precipitate a certain physical occurrence on the body. So again, in terms of UFOs, the Ascended Masters have explained that each planet is a unit. You can see how supposedly, as far as science concerns, if there are other planets with intelligent life, they will be very, very far from Earth. So far that with current technology, no way you could travel there in a lifetime. So of course you can speculate about more advanced forms of technology. But what the Masters explain is that a planetary unit is actually given to the free will of the people who are taking embodiment on it. And they are allowed to do what they want to do with that without any physical interference from other planets, even if those planets are more sophisticated than ours. Our way to grow is the Ascended Masters, who are also in a higher realm. And you can experience Ascended Masters, and it can be a genuine experience, but it's just not a physical experience. I have, in a recent answer, I talked about the I Am movement, which was one of the first movements that really popularized the concept of Ascended Masters. And I talk about, there's a book called Unveiled Mysteries, where the author describes how he physically meets Saint Germain. He is physically going to this place called Table Mountain in Wyoming. There's a portal that opens up, or doorway that opens up in the mountain, and he goes into this physical retreat. He also describes how he is in Arabia, where there's also an Ascended Master retreat. They're driving in a car, and suddenly there's an opening that opens up and a ramp that goes down, and they are physically driving down into this retreat. And the first time I read this, I thought, why would you need a physical car to get into a retreat that is per definition in a higher realm, which is why we can't see it with our physical senses? So you see what I'm saying? I'm not denying that there are all kinds of parallel, what you want to call it, realms or universes, and that people can have had genuine experiences of these realms. I'm in no way denying that. I'm just saying, if you can't see it with your physical senses, whatever experience you are having, it wasn't in the physical. It was because your mind got attuned to another level of vibration. And so that would be my understanding of it, my statement of it. I know I have met people who are so attached to this being actual physical. And all I can say is, then you have to live based on that belief and see where that gets you. I can only tell you what I've gone through, the process that I've gone through, and coming to this realization that, not all that glitters is gold. Not all that seems physical is physical.